Welcome back. We're here with Jason and Matt from Warp. Guys, how are you guys doing today?
Fantastic, man. Always loving the weather in Sweden. It's nice and cold. I found myself a nice spot. But yeah, all good.
Yes.
Yep.
Jason, how about you?
Fantastic, man. Busy, 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 but loving it right now. Absolutely loving it.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm very excited to dive deep into what you guys are building. So, could you guys talk to me about how Warp helps smaller gaming studios succeed?
Sure thing. I mean, I'm happy to go on this. My background's like 20 years in games. I've seen all games of all sizes, from big corporate ones to little ones. I've launched my own Web3 game. And essentially, one of the things we found was in Web3, especially, there's not enough support for studios on the publisher level. And what I mean by that is even a small game in Web 2, you might have heard of Valheim. There's just a small team. You hear the story that these guys, they're all friends from school or whatever. And then they make this massive game and it's huge hit. What you don't hear about is that it's backed by like $3 billion publisher. And that's in the background. And you don't hear that that publisher is called Coffee Stain, which is owned by THQ Nordic, Embracer Group now. And we want to bring that to Web3 games. Smaller games often have the issues that when they're trying to market or trying to use Web3 services, they have to do everything themselves from the marketing side. Not just the tech. There's a lot of tech solutions out there, but say you want to launch on a marketplace, you have to pay the whole marketing for that as the game. You want to go on an exchange. Not only do you have to do all the marketing yourself, you have to pay extreme amounts of money. So what we're here to do is make your game good enough to survive in Web 2. And the standard is higher than you think for even a mid game. But we have the crew now to make that happen. And once you get that, the numbers in Web 2 are staggering. Even a tiny game should be earning between 5K and 20K a day.
Wow.
And with that money, you can change a lot of stuff, anything, including with tokenomics.
That's amazing. Jason, do you have anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the in Web3, it's an absolute minefield for small studios to navigate, and it like if they do not have, let's say, a Web3 background or they've never been immersed in the culture of Web3, knowing where to go and how to do things is it's insanely difficult, and it can end up being very, very costly. Now, the one advantage that we have as a team is, a large part of our team has been immersed in Web3 for years now. So the network that's been built up and the trust network of trustworthy solutions, agencies, individuals, partners, that's something that we bring to the table that we don't gate that. Our network is fully accessible to any studio that comes to us because, to grow the space, things have to be done better. And it has to be done in a manner that is net positive for the space.
Yeah. And you mentioned your team. Your team is stacked. You guys have, I mean, people from Activision. You guys have people, that created or helped create Candy Crush. You have people, help like at mini clips, Riot Games. Do you think this is something that really separates you guys versus another company when helping gaming studios?
Yeah, I think
100%.
so. I mean, one of the things that I've seen a lot of in the space is a lot of Web3 games founders and KOLs are kind of really against Web2 games people. They think that we come into the space, we don't know anything about the space, we tell everyone how it should go, la 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 la. But generally, what happens to these unsuccessful Web2 projects is they actually listen to Web3 guys. So this is the issue. This is the unspoken truth behind all of this. They come into the space. They look through the space, they find who's supposedly the experts in the space, they go to those experts, they put in their recommendations and do them to the letter, and then they fail miserably because they spend the majority of their money on, like the Web3 dance as opposed to making good games. Now, what we bring to the table is both a sort of a sturdy Web3 background and the kind of in-depth Web2 people that have built the industry. Like the execs that we're talking about, you wouldn't necessarily even know that they were interested in Web3. I mean, the guy who built BattleNet, the person who built the recommendation engine for Xbox Live. I mean, these people have added millions, billions to top line revenue over the years with 150 game awards between us, multiple patents. It's just a ton of stuff that we've done. And this isn't just to say like, oh yeah, we're all cool, let's listen to us. This is because Studios need help. Like studios need help and they need guidance. And we were very careful about who we assembled into this kind of dream team that we can help a studio in any stage, at any point, whether they're pre-TGE, whether they're post-TGE. And the depth of experience is really to get them to level up what they're thinking about games. It's not good enough to just look at X. It's not good enough to just follow the metas. There are metas in Web2 games, in mobile games that last weeks that you wouldn't believe. And you would have no knowledge of these new advertising metas, these new different kinds of battle pass metas, the waterfall offers, the things that they're doing. But we have that opportunity with Web3 and AI to kind of shortcut into that sort of good zone. And that's why we need like essentially a god level team to be able to pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason, you want to add anything? Is there anything?
I mean, experience is everything, right? And the the team that we've assembled, their passion is in gaming. These are people that have been at the highest level of gaming now for decades, and their passion is gaming. And a lot of them hail from, let's say, the more corporate side of gaming, but they're just as disillusioned as the small studios with let's say the overall outlook in the trad gaming market. And they're seeing Web3 gaming as a an inevitability now of where the gaming
And a
industry
huge
is
opportunity as well.
heading. And again, a huge opportunity because of like the acceleration that Web3 brings to small studios is something that is borderline unachievable in traditional gaming. You can be a nobody studio in Web3, have a good product, build a great community, and all of a sudden you're rubbing shoulders with giants. And that's something that is pretty magical about this space. So their transition into this space with us is one, it is one that's born out of the evolution of the market. They have seen every trend in gaming. They have seen every evolution in gaming. And it's only natural that those that have been leading at the very top come into this space. And, we're super blessed to have them on our side, our team to fill this very necessary gap in holistic publishing, end-to-end publishing, solutions that actually genuinely help studios that care about the studios. There's no, there's no cheating the studios out of money through
Yeah.
short-sightedness, like a lot of the agencies do. It's about genuinely supporting something because if there is a product that has a high potential, the success of any game in like under Warp is equal to our success. So,
Exactly. And
like
that's why we
there,
share things like the nodes, right? So with the network effect of all of the games, the community is shared. This is things that Web3 and AI allow us to do, to share the communities between games. Not all games make it, like 90% of games fail. But what they don't do in a traditional publisher is have any route for those players who've dedicated their time and their money to actually be part of the same network effect, to be part of the same community moving forwards. And this is one of the fundamental things we need to change about the space. Everyone looks at a project, invests in a project, looks at the founders of a project. It's actually a studio. Studios take time to build, they take effort, they take years of blood and sweat. I mean, even Web2 gaming stories, you wouldn't believe it. Like one of the companies that I worked for, Mag Interactive, they're a small words and quiz thing. The guy literally was in his car, had to lay off his team because they were doing something in music that got basically destroyed by Apple Music coming out, and they rebuilt their game thing from the ground up, and they're willing to take those things. The fight is real in Web2 gaming. At DICE, right, one of the biggest Web2 gaming conferences, the mood is bleak out there, because Apple's IDFA has kind of killed discoverability. There's zero on the App Store, zero on the Play Store. This is the chance. This is the opportunity we have. And this is why the move to Web3 changes everything, like from the top down. And that's how within just a few months we managed to assemble basically all of the people who've made all of the games that I've played as a kid. It's crazy to think like, okay, this guy, he made that game. Oh my God, our advisor made Armored Core. Or like, it's insanity. It's insanity. Like this guy actually did the thing in WoW that I spent money on. Like
Yeah.
that's nuts. And you get to geek out with these people. Like we've got one guy, Glenn. He's like, you just chat to him and it's like listening to the old man stories around the fire. He's got a beard even more impressive. It's like down here. He was at Dell when it was a startup, and he still loves games every second of the day. And yeah, I just can't be happier to be part of this group.
And if I think, like you said, only about 10% of games succeed because it's a very difficult landscape to just work in. If you guys could give those gaming studios or those games one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, I'm going to jump in just before Jason. My piece of advice that I would give them is do the thing that you wanted to do. Like, if you get given money, you've got a thesis, it's a game, build that game. Don't pivot, don't do that until you have actually proven to statistical significance that your product was a fail. Like, don't just see, okay, there's a new type of game trending, because you're not competing with games that are out now. You're competing with games that are out in 2 years. You're competing with other games that are going to be building for a long time as well. So my piece of advice is stick with what they gave you the money to do, whether it's your community who paid you the money, or whether it's VCs that gave you the money. And only then, once it's done, pivot. And don't pivot from, let's say, doing fantasy RPGs to racing, because you'll have to relearn everything again.
Yeah.
Pivot within the genre that you've seen that's successful and that you love it, because you're going to have to boot up that game 1,000 times, maybe 100,000 times, and replay the first level and delete the game every time you get progress just to check something. It's a miserable experience when you're meant to love this thing, but you have to be really dedicated and do the thing that you intended to do. That's my piece of advice.
I mean,
Jason?
I would say, for founders to network, aside from, the focus being around building your game, focus on your game, but network. Reach out to other founders that are in either a similar genre, similar space. Um, the journey as a founder can be a very lonely one, and the more you end up holding yourself in, the lonelier it gets. So always be reaching out to other founders. No founder I've ever reached out to has ever said, I don't want to talk. Totally the opposite.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
that's borderline how I met Matt. It was us as founders ranting about how skewed the space is, for lack of a better word, and there are plenty of better words to describe the space.
Many of
So
them
yeah,
offensive.
very, yeah. So, network, because the amount of value you can get out of other people's experience. Um, don't try to network with folk that are not in your industry, that don't specialize in your industry, because they will all have opinions and they may come across, very positively at first, but if you end up with the wrong crowd, it can be it can be a dark path you end up going down. And it can quite literally make or break you, depending on who you surround yourself with. So network, network, network. That is the most
Yeah, and
crucial
ask for
aspect.
help. That's one of the things
Yeah.
I'd also say is like
Yeah.
ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help from other founders. Like we're in it to make it. Like at the end of the day, every founder wants to have a successful game, have millions of people playing it, and make money from it, right? But you're not necessarily in competition with the other people all the time. Like there are plenty of games that exist in the same space. There's not just one horror game. There's not just one shooter. There's not just one this or that. There are plenty of games. There's plenty of pie to eat in the space. So don't be so guarded about your failures or your successes. But it's always good to sort of pick the right people to chat to because, as Jason was saying, it's very difficult. When you look at our industry, Web3, right? There have been no truly successful mega hits so far in mobile or in any game that you could say, okay, this is genre defining massive hit. And many of the VCs and many of these people who are locked in for Web3 gaming were thinking off the grid's going to be the hit. It's a great game. It's a great game on the same way that you would say like the Wukong game was or whatever it was. That's like a triple A indie title. It's not a triple A title, but for an indie, that's as good as it gets, right? They spent way less than GTA 6. And you
Yeah.
will not build GTA 6. They took 20 years to build GTA 6. You never think about like it's GTA 6 took 6, 7 years to build. No, it didn't. It took 20 years to build It didn't just take the marketing budget for marketing GTA 6. It took the marketing budget for GTA 1, GTA 2, GTA 3, GTA 4, GTA 5 before. They spent billions of dollars. They have a generation of people trained in this. And if you go up to a VC and say, hey, my Web3 car game is going to beat GTA 6, they're an idiot if they don't laugh you out of the room. Like, you have to have built GTA 1 to even attempt that. I mean, there's guys trying to build essentially that big space game from the Icelandic studio. That's Eve Online, right? So the guys from Eve
Yeah.
Online are building a Web3 Eve Online. That's probably going to take them the best part of 5 or 6 years. After that, then you can judge them. But yeah, it's a long haul. It's a long, long haul. So games is not the place for a quick in and out, I'd say. So yeah, just be friends with people because otherwise it gets lonely and sad, and
Yeah.
it's difficult when you're a founder and your game's not out yet, and you see other people getting shit tons of money from VCs, and you see KOLs earning like crap tons from airdrops. It's rough. So you gotta gird yourself against that a bit.
And how do you think these founders or just people in general go about asking for help properly?
I mean, there's no wrong way to ask for help. I mean, asking for, meetings, just requesting, to connect. There is no wrong way to ask for help. You can lay out you'd be surprised how many founders have borderline the exact same problems or have
Yeah.
faced the exact same problems and overcome them or found other people that have helped them overcome them. So yeah, there's definitely no wrong way about how to ask for help. I mean, even if you go to LinkedIn and let's say you're quite happy with your game, but you're like, I feel like there could be something better. So let's say it's like in art, for example, and you reach out to someone that is, someone related to art, game,
Yeah.
art design. You never know who's going to respond to you there as well.
Yeah.
It's like you could end up in, having a conversation with someone that has been, led art design for some real prominent title and is more than willing to actually have a sit down because the people that are involved in gaming, they tend to have a passion for gaming. So it's like their passions are aligned with yours. And if you as a founder are genuinely reaching out for a good reason, the likelihood is very, very high that someone is going to respond positively to you actually just asking for their opinion, asking for a quick meeting, and it's because most of the people in the industry love the industry. It's like it's a brutal one to work in on both sides, Web3 or traditional.
Yeah.
But the people that stick with it, and the people that are there, they're there for a reason. It's because they love what they do.
Yeah.
And there's so many barriers to entry against it. Like, if you've ever tried to apply for a Web2 job, they'll say things like, oh, level design experience doesn't count towards game design. And you're like, shit, well, I've been a level designer for 4 years. How do I break into game design? And you'll see things like the interns basically working away in QA, and then it takes them a few years to get up to QA lead, and then maybe they get a producer. Or if you're in arts, you have to like basically be ridiculously good at art compared to everyone else. The standards are crazy. For every job in the games industry, there's like 100 people applying for it. And now with AI and the rest, cutting those creative jobs, it's tough. So people who are still here and still exist and are still around, they are genuinely nice people who are there to help. That's what I would say. Yeah, don't be afraid of asking people, no matter how big their title, because generally asking for help is one of the best ways to be friends with someone. It's one of the best ways to actually become on side with a person to ask them for a favor. But yeah,
Yeah.
my internet's crapping out, so I'm gonna drop at this point. And Jason, you carry on for a bit, and so I will catch you on the flip side.
Matt, thank you so much for
Catching you,
coming
bit,
on,
man.
man. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no
it.
worries. Thanks, man.
So Jason, I think it's I think asking for help and networking is very important. I think a lot of as we've seen both of us, there's a lot of opportunity that can come on just getting on a call with someone, right? Just saying, hey, let's hop on a call with each other. Let's see how we can collaborate.
Yeah.
Like it's that easy, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, so my colleague Paul, he said to me, "Hey, you need to get on this Twitter space with Matt." I had no idea who Matt was. He's like, you'll see, you'll understand why I want you on a Twitter space with them. And that brief connection there on the Twitter space, which ultimately led to 48 hours later, Matt flying out to Greece to start, everything that has begun here. And another Twitter space was, Uncle Funk, Andrew, who I believe you guys have had a
Yes.
podcast with as well. I was on a space with him, and just the way he was speaking, it just fascinated me. I was like, hang on, he's different. He's different. There's something about this guy, and I reached out to him on Twitter, and I was like, I want to arrange a sit down. I want a meeting with you. And all of these little moments, and like this was off the back of like a really dark time. Everything was at its lowest in like business wise. The project was struggling like mad. Back with my other company, and then all of a sudden I started to see light at the end of the tunnel by communicating with these people, and all of a sudden ideas and plans and everything else started getting fleshed out, and within a matter of like 2-3 weeks, the core of everything had been arranged and set up, organized in full flow. Within a month, all the documentation, everything had begun. So things can move fast when you ask the right questions and you link up with the right people. So yeah, I would just always communicate. Communication is
Yeah,
king.
absolutely. So, we've talked about the game and, what you guys are building. I also want to dive into your, some of your personal journeys as well. Early in your life, your mother passed away at a very young age. For someone that might have lost somewhat recently, it's either them being younger or just losing a parent in general. What was that process that you took to start working through that sad mourning phase of losing
Well,
someone?
I mean, for me, the it wasn't quite a mourning phase. I was only 11 months old when she was killed. Um, but the life is just a journey. No matter what happens, the good and the bad, all of it, it's all part of the same journey. So, for me, I was driven from a very young age to not be in the same sort of social situation that like my family had been in for, quite some generations. And I wanted more. And I wanted, that the life that I'd had to live through, my kids wouldn't have to live through. And I was a parent at a very young age, at 17. And, I always wanted something better for them. And that's, when I entered the Web3 space when I was like 27. And it was that. It's like a lot of heavy stuff can happen to anyone in life. I mean, that's why I love speaking with people because everyone's got a story to tell, right?
Yeah.
But there's there's never not a silver lining on things. If what had happened with my family hadn't happened, the likelihood of me being here today is, it's unlikely that I'd be here today.
Yeah.
And, nor would I have, amazing, like three amazing kids. It's just kind of what you do with your time. So no matter what happens in your life, always look for the positives, always look for the good memories, and always be looking forward. You can't live looking back. And if you're in a tough situation, and I've been there multiple times, if you're in a really tough situation, taking a step back and then refocusing on, what can you achieve now? What can you fix now? If the larger problem camp isn't something that you can fix, now in this like in right in this moment, don't focus on it. Focus on the little bits, the little wins, and build yourself up again, towards that. And we've done this multiple times, so it's like it's just keep on going. If
Yeah.
if you're lacking the motivation, again, reach out to someone. Don't try to, hold yourself in. There's always people around you that have gone through something similar. And that goes for life, it goes for work, it goes for everything.
Did you always have this perspective of taking the positive out of things, or was this something that you slowly
Always.
learned?
Not
Always.
always, always. Like I always wanted more. It's like I would go out as a kid, down to the boatyard when I was growing up in Scotland to get little jobs as a 7, 8-year-old, scraping paint off boats. I
Wow.
always wanted more, and I was working two jobs whilst at the same time building up the first startup that I was a part of in Web3 because it's like well I've got to keep putting food on the table, but I got to build this. So it was 20-hour days, and it was worth it. It was worth it. Um, yeah, people should kind of they should take a moment and think how much do I want this?
Yeah.
Um, if you want it, go for it, but don't half-ass it. Like you can't half-ass anything. And if you hit an obstacle in the road, again, reverse, analyze it, get over it. That's it. You'll find a way. If you really want to, you will always find a way. And that's why I love being surrounded by the people that we have now
Yeah.
because they've all gone through it. People that are right at the top, in their lives in business. And they joke about the fact that it's like, well, I'm glad you guys are the ones, doing the startup aspect of this because, I've been there 4 times now and twice it almost killed me. Because it is not easy. This life requires absolute unwavering conviction of where you want to go and where you want to be. You cannot waver away from that. You can have moments of weakness, you can have moments of doubt, but ultimately you've got to keep on going through it.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see someone so convicted to what they're doing. And I find it very fascinating. I always like to question, like you said, you've always had this desire to want more. And it's very fascinating to see someone like you who's had it, I would even say since, a very young age, almost it's a natural state of your life versus you have someone who isn't. And so it's
Mm.
very fascinating to see, like, were they born with this? Is this a genetic thing? Is this an environment thing? It's very fascinating to see someone like you who's driven versus someone who kind of just wants to live an average life.
Yeah. I mean, there's there's a couple of things that, gone on in my life. There was like moments of therapy as I was going through divorce, um, and having arguments with the therapist because they're like, yeah, but you are, you know, the amount of time and focus that you're putting in on this, you're neglecting some aspects of your life. And it's like, yeah, but it's like I'm not accepting my life to just be, let's say, a mediocre life in the sense of not, I don't come from I'm a high school dropout at the end of the day as well. So it's like I've had to quite literally build my life up from zero in
Yeah.
every, imaginable way. It's like I don't have, any of that to fall back on. And the life that I chose, the industries that I've chosen to work in require dedication. They require focus. And it's like I don't want to be, I was talking to the therapist, I don't want to be like, like yourself. I mean, no offense to yourself. Like I'm not like, I'm not downplaying, your role in the world and, the help that you provide to people. But you're going to be doing this and you're comfortable in your 9 to 5 and you preach about work-life balance, but there is no such thing as work-life balance. Life
Yeah.
isn't balanced, and it never will be. You can obviously always, for anyone out there, find time and spend time with your families and enjoy life, but with what we're building and what we're doing, it requires all my time to not, I can't veer away from that. So that didn't sit down. It didn't sit well with her, I have to say.
No.
But I was like, you are not inside my head. Totally the opposite. If you saw inside my head, I doubt you would understand anyways. Like what motivates me is definitely not what motivates you because you're here and you will be here 20 years from now doing the same thing. I have different goals in life, and for example, I love the industry that I've ended up working in is it's like a dream come true. it's what I wanted as a child as well. Like I always worked, I consumed so much fantasy and games and everything, and going through that early stage of adulthood where I didn't know where my life was going. I didn't know what I wanted. And then discovering, Web3 communities and then Web3 gaming and like, holy crap, like I feel at home here. And I feel like I can fulfill these goals that I have in this side of the industry. So I just went for it. I
Yeah.
was just all in. Like, you're not getting me out of here.
Yeah. I think, like you said, when you find that thing that drives you and fuels you with passion, you just have to go all in, right? Like it's either we're going to do it all the way or we're not going to,
Yeah, man, you live
dance around
once.
it.
You live
Yeah.
once. It's like I was surrounded for years in my work before coming into this space where people would know how many years and how many days or how many months they had left before they could retire.
Yeah.
And that goes for people that were younger than me and people that were older than me. And I thought that was the most depressing thing ever. Like these people would do the exact same thing on repeat. Now, obviously, not everyone can do everything. It's
Yeah.
like the world doesn't work that way. But I would ask them, it's like, guys, like, do you not want to, I mean, like one of the younger guys, like, do you not want to set something up on your own and do this work on your own? And he's like, yeah, but this is stable. This is comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Most people don't want to not be comfortable.
They
Me,
crave,
if I,
they
yeah,
crave that.
if I'm comfortable, I get worried. It's
Yeah.
like if I don't have a million tabs and a million things on the go, then it's like, oof, I don't even know what to do with myself on weekends. The whole touch grass, it's like, but what if there's something that I could be doing right now? It's like, but yeah, it's sad and it's good to motivate people that if they want to try something, it doesn't mean that you have to dedicate your whole life to it, but try something. Try improve your outcome. Try improve your life. Don't just accept things for what they are at face value because that's the world doesn't advance like that.
Absolutely. I have one more question for you, Jason. If you could have dinner with two people,
Ooh.
one person from the past and one person from the present, who would it be and why?
Hmm. Whoa, this is a good one. All right,
It
one
stumps
person.
almost every guest.
Yeah, and I actually knew that this question was coming as well. Um, one person from the past. Good God, this really is a good one, isn't it?
Yes.
Um, I mean, I won't go historical. I would genuinely say that like one person from the past that I would love to sit down and have a meal with is my mother. Just so that she could have a glimpse of what has actually become. And one person from the present, this again, this is a really, really good one. Um, uh, I genuinely don't know. It's like yeah, it's like hmm. I mean, I would genuinely love to be able to sit down with my girl and just have a meal, because normally we end up eating separately, due to work. But good God, man, you have got me completely stumped on who I would. Uh, I mean, I think just to be able to tap into their minds, I would genuinely love to sit down with the founders of Larian, or the composer for like the music behind Baldur's Gate,
Okay, yes,
because these
yes.
are truly magical visionaries when it comes to the execution of what they've done. Because see, I've managed to have sit downs with some exceptional people. Um, we've had master classes being given to our community by some really top artists from like the fantasy space. Hes Cox and the art director from CD Projekt Red. She was also working with us briefly on a project. So yeah, for me, it mostly revolves around this side of the industry. But yeah,
Yeah,
Larian, just because I like their passion for the industry that is well placed. You know, like th this focus on supporting um, the creative minds. I think that is crucial. You know, basically, I would sit down with anyone that tries to move the games industry forward because it's one of the it's one of the most beautiful spaces to work in because a game like the creation of a game is like the coming together the collective creativeness of multiple people bringing something to life and yeah it's a blessing to be a part of so that would those would be my answers.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, Jason, those are the questions I have. How can people find you guys? And what is one thing you want to leave people with?
Okay, they can find us right now. I would focus on finding us over at warpchain underscore on Twitter. And one thing that I would leave the world with is actually something very related to um, the situation ongoing in Web3 right now. And there was a take the other day or last night um, that was a very good take around um, it was a very good take around the situation that's going on here with tokenomic tokens and projects launching and all the rest of this. And the question would well the question sorry like I am muddling this up as my mind is trying to think here. Okay, so it is here. The topic focuses on whether projects that are coming into this space should be or shouldn't be focusing on the speculation side of Web3. Now, where a lot of takes that were in this post were, very, very good, no one addressed one of the most critical points, which is should speculators in Web3 hold game projects to higher standards than they do memes? And it's one that I would love people to think about because if a ground up studio is doing, they're building something with an intrinsic value, a tangible value, sorry, um, the support of a community around a token, for example, is immense for a small studio and well, it can be their lifeline. So yeah, should speculators be holding a lot of these game projects, to a much higher standard than they do meme projects? When you see memes that have no real fundamental value sitting at, multiple $100 million market caps, and small studios that have tried to raise and tried to build, and there's a value behind what they're doing being shunned on the timeline. Like my one takeaway here is like as a space, we all have to do better. We all have to be better. And most importantly, be it memes, be it games, be it whatever, we have to support everyone that cares about the industry and the people in it.
I love it. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you also bringing Matt with you, sharing your knowledge, breaking down what you're doing. I love the passion that you guys bring. I love the fact that you guys took a logical approach and built a team with everyone that has real experience in Web 2. I just appreciate it. And if you could stay in the room after we end the podcast, that would be great. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.